The Game Awards. I don't like the Game Awards, but at the same time I also love the Game Awards. See, I'm one of those disgusting people that only watches the awards for new game announcements. I know it's disgraceful that I don't watch it to celebrate the game with the best community support, but I can't help what I am. Now, I follow new game releases closely because what else am I going to follow? The news? No thank you. So I'm at least aware of what all these games are, but it's kind of rare that I played them in the year that they came out. Now you might be wondering, Hydrated Gaming, you didn't play Top Spin 2K25, the nominee for the best sports/racing game of the year 2024? Are you a fake gamer? No, I'm middle class. I can't afford to play all these at launch, especially when I know that everything not made by the Donkey Konga guys is going to cost 15 cents and a high five in a couple of months. But what I do love most of all and still make sure to participate in every year are the controversies that arise. People fighting about what games should have gotten in and what games shouldn't have. I mean, come on, no Miitopia? I don't care if it came out in 2020. Miitopia transcends time. This drama is the highlight of the show to me. I remember a few years ago how Fire Emblem didn't get a lot of recognition and everyone was so mad. It was incredible stuff. Before you get angry at me for enjoying that, I'm a Smash fan, so I have a personal grudge against this series, which by extension caused me to hate every single game or TV show in this art style. So much so that in Smash I've kept a collection of all the anime nerds that I've banished to the Shadow Realm. But you may be wondering, how can I participate in these Game Award festivities if I have uninformed opinions on these games? Well, lucky for me, informed opinions are completely optional in the corporate media games journalism space, so it's not really an issue. However, I'm on YouTube, not a flimsy office chair in an overpriced building somewhere in Los Angeles. And here on YouTube you can find reviews from all sorts of different types of normal, everyday people. Folks who just play a game, point a camera at themselves, and just tell you how they feel. There's so many of them that if you have uninformed and stupid opinions like mine, you're gonna get buried by someone who's more informed and passionate and therefore does a better job. So this means that if I want to succeed, I have to get more informed and really start working on understanding just what makes a game worth playing or not. And with the backdrop of a video game awards show on the horizon, now seems like the perfect time to dive into this. The concept of the game of the year as a whole kind of begs the question, how should we review games? After all, this is entertainment. Is it possible to be objective? Can there actually be a definitive game of the year? And what makes a review good? Is a good review just one that agrees with my personal opinions? Now let's talk reviews. Reviews are everything in the modern era. As a child, you're reviewed based on how well you can spell refrigerator. As an adult, you're reviewed on how much of a credit risk you are, and as a senior citizen, actuaries will review your projected life expectancy for the purposes of estimating a likelihood of a life insurance claim in order to ensure that the company can remain fiscally solvent. Everything is reviewed and rated nowadays. When you buy something on Amazon, you check the reviews. Uber driver, reviews. Airbnb, reviews. Even dating apps apparently review you behind the scenes. My condolences to the many people who've had to use these. Society has failed you. Now, a lot of these things that I mentioned are pretty objective. Did the pen function? Did the Uber driver remember to observe the rules of the road? Did the Airbnb look like the photos? Did you look like the photos? But things get more complicated when you review entertainment. How do you compare things like Red Dead Redemption 2 to games like Miitopia or the Bluey game? If you're a reviewer, do you just give Red Dead a 10, Miitopia a 7, and Bluey a 4 because that's how much you personally like them? No, that would be stupid. Miitopia is an 11. So how can you compare these three completely different things objectively? Well, the answer really is that you don't, and you probably shouldn't. So let's take a step back to see how our review ought to work in the first place, in my opinion, of course. So when reviewing games, I think there are three main questions you should seek to answer, and one bonus question we'll talk about later. But the three main questions I think a review should look at are, 1. What kind of game is this trying to be? 2. Does its marketing accurately reflect what it is, and therefore set audience expectations accordingly? And 3. Does it accomplish what it told the audience that it was going to do? Let's look at an example. Here we have a copy of Wii Sports. Wii Sports currently has a 76 on Metacritic. Now I would say that is far too low. To me, Wii Sports is an easy 10 out of 10 when I apply my criteria. First, let's examine what Wii Sports was trying to be. Wii Sports was a free pack-in game designed to show off the Wii's motion controls. It wanted to demonstrate how the Wii makes gaming accessible to people who may not have ever played a video game before. It was designed to be a fun, casual game for a casual audience. But there was still stuff here for the hardcore gamer. If you don't believe me, go after the gold medals in the minigames. It wasn't trying to be some big AAA experience, and to top things off for 99% of Wii owners in the US at least, it was free with the console. In short, it was an introduction to the wonderful world of Nintendo Wii. Now on to number 2, did the Wii's marketing accurately reflect what it was? In short, yes. I very much remember the Wii Would Like to Play campaign with the family having fun playing tennis, and the grandpa making his Mii. You knew exactly what you were getting here with Wii Sports and the Wii as a whole, especially because Wii Sports was half the reason that people bought this GameCube on steroids. And number 3, did it succeed at what it was trying to do? We all know the answer to this. Of course it did. It's a pack-in game rivaled only by the original Super Mario Bros. It introduced millions of families to the world of Nintendo, changed the gaming landscape in huge ways forever, and arguably may have even killed Xbox entirely. Now, after discussing a game in depth, the reviewer will often give games a number score, typically out of 10, but what each number means can vary a little bit between reviewers. Personally, I haven't ever given out a number score, as I feel if I did a good job on the review, me screaming out a number at the end wouldn't really add anything. But on the flip side, it's fun listening to people argue that the reviewer is a fraud because he gave a game a 7.5 instead of an 8. So not giving a score out of 10 is boring and kind of chicken, so maybe I'll start doing it for funsies in the future. But now it's time to give my opinion on what each number should mean on our scale, and then we'll use this system to go rank Wii Sports. So here's the thing, I feel like 1 through 4 are a waste of numbers because they all basically mean that the game is trash. No one is going to argue that a game should have been a 4 instead of a 3, this is basically just the terrible zone. 5 is a more interesting case, as I feel it occupies the space between the terrible 1 through 4 and the mediocre 6. The best word I can think of for these games are disappointing. If it had no potential and no one cared, it goes into the 1 through 4, and if it did a few things right but still fell a bit short, then it makes it to 6. Which, as I said before, would be mediocre. But as for games that are a 5, to quote our 26th president, they are cold and timid souls who know neither victory nor defeat. This is where I put functional yet boring and uninspired games that aren't worth playing. 7 to me is a game that's good, 8 is great, 9 is fantastic, cream of the crop, and lastly, the coveted 10. For me, those 3 questions I mentioned earlier can help us label 1 through 8, but when it's time to distinguish between a 9 and a 10, a 4th question is needed. This question is, does the game push the genre, and therefore gaming as a whole, forward? To me, the 10 should be reserved for your truly special and remarkable games. Your Breath of the Wilds, your Minecrafts, your The Sims, Mario 64, Doom, Halo 2, and yes, Wii Sports. Games that were so massive and important that they actually changed the landscape of gaming forever. Can you imagine a world without NFL 2K1, the 15th best game ever made according to Metacritic? So now we have our basic template to help us come up with the meat of our review down, and we also have the review scale. So what are some pitfalls that we should avoid while discussing games? I'm going to use another example from a game that I actually did buy this year and have been playing. Now I told you I pretty much never play games the year that they're released, but for 2024 there is one extremely important exception. Yes, in addition to the Game Awards, the Patrick Star game is kind of the reason I wanted to talk about the review process, because karma has come for me, you see. I laughed at the Fire Emblem fans, but now it's my turn to seethe. I am a SpongeBob fan because I was a kid in the 2000s, I don't think I need to explain it more than that. So when I saw a Patrick Star Goat Simulator clone was announced and it was on sale for $25 almost immediately after launch, I was on board. I played it, had a lot of fun, and then checked out the IGN review. As you'll soon see, this review sums up just about everything I dislike about the game reviewing scene. But first I want to make it clear that I mean absolutely no disrespect to its writer. I humbly disagree with their take, but that's okay because we are different human beings, so some disagreement is to be expected. This is all said in the spirit of debate. So with that out of the way, let's go through this review and see how it fails to take into account the 3 questions we asked earlier. Number 1, what is this game trying to be? I said it before, easy, it's a Goat Simulator clone for SpongeBob fans. I don't think the IGN reviewer realizes this though, as they make it sound like it's a minigame collection with the goofy open world sandbox stapled onto it. But this is incorrect, it's a goofy open world sandbox game with some minigames stapled onto it, and trust me, that makes a huge difference. Number 2, does its marketing accurately reflect what it is and therefore set audience expectations accordingly? I'd say yes, I knew what I was getting into here. If you watch all the trailers, you can clearly see that this game is about running around and causing chaos as Patrick. There is one trailer that focuses very heavily on the minigames, and it's possible this is the only trailer that the reviewer saw, but the trailer with the most views by far is the Nintendo Switch one, which demonstrates what this game is and who it's for very well. It's the area where SpongeBob fan and Goat Simulator fan meet on the Venn diagram. No one else is going to like this, but luckily for me, that's where I am. And 3, does it accomplish what it told the audience it would do? I believe it does. I had a lot of fun messing around with this game and some of its tools, like moving people in front of cars and stuff. If I had had this as a kid, I would have loved it. It's a SpongeBob game for the fans, and if you don't like SpongeBob or Goat Simulator, then this isn't for you, but that's okay. Well, with that in mind, why do I dislike the IGN review so much? Well, as I said before, it doesn't focus on what the game is actually about. It doesn't fundamentally understand question number 1. This isn't meant to be a minigame collection, but the review makes it sound like it is one. Then later it talks about how there are weird physics issues, clipping issues, and audio glitches. I mean, this is true, but that's also the point of this genre. This is a feature, not a bug. This game would be extremely lame without its jank. The jank is the draw here.
Nifty! Hi, Patrick.
Patrick's controls, the camera, and all the other stuff that makes the game actually function all work just fine. It's only the world elements which are janky, and again, that's on purpose. This is the draw of Goat Simulator games. The idea is to break the game. You even get achievements for things like clipping through the floor.
In December 1903, on the sands of Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, man took his first step towards the sky. But he had not yet learned how to fly.
Then later in the review, the writer laments the lack of focus on story in the Patrick Star Goat Simulator clone. This, to me, is probably the biggest fallacy I see in reviews. Let me return to bringing up Fire Emblem. Now let's say that I played it. I never will, but we're pretending here. But let's say that I played it, and my review was, the strategy elements are fine, but I wish there was more of an emphasis on platforming, which is what I like. Is that a good review? It's true that I don't like strategy games, but does it tell the audience anything about whether this game is good? No. It just tells you I don't like strategy games. When you say things like that, you almost come across as believing that this whole genre of game just shouldn't exist at all. To you, it will always be inferior to a game with a good story. If this was an action-adventure game with an over-the-shoulder camera in the style of Last of Us, then it would be a masterpiece. But that was never what the vision was here. And it's a very good thing that not every game is like that. I think it's a very bad idea to just write off an entire genre, even if it is niche, just because it's not your favorite. Now, the common response to this dilemma of reviewers not liking a genre out of personal preference, which is completely legitimate, is the aggrieved party saying that you shouldn't review games in a genre you're not interested in. But I don't agree with that either. It can actually be very valuable to have a reviewer look at a game in a genre that they dislike. The reason for this is that on this planet, there are almost certainly other people who don't like that genre. So reviews that say, yeah, it was a typical RPG, which is a genre that I don't like, and this game didn't change that, can be useful for people with similar tastes. But occasionally something wonderful happens. For me personally, JRPGs are my least favorite genre, but my favorite game of all time is a JRPG in Earthbound. If I review Earthbound as someone who makes it clear that I hate JRPGs, then other people with similar tastes may go, whoa, then maybe I should give this one a look. This one must be different and special, and that's a very useful thing. Now let's jump back to the Patrick review. If the writer said something like, I don't really like these janky on-purpose games with no plot at all, and Patrick didn't change my mind, this review goes from being kind of poor to amazing and useful for others who feel the same way. And then lastly it says, the Patrick Star game is obviously geared more towards kids than those of us who grew up loving SpongeBob, but so are things like Astrobot and Super Mario Wonder, and those games are brilliant. This isn't as big of an issue as the one before, but this still annoys me. Why bother with this delicious hamburger? It's not a juicy steak. This isn't a platformer, and it's obviously not trying to compete with the likes of Mario. These aren't even comparable titles. Wow, this Fire Emblem stinks when I compare it to Pilot Wing 64 and Mario Kart Double Dash. If she said something like Goat Simulator did this a lot better than Patrick, again, this goes from a bad comparison to a great one. But right now, it's like, can we stop comparing games to each other that are just completely different? Comparing the legendary Starfy to Madden 25 is apples and oranges. I think it's always best to judge games based on what they're trying to be and how well they accomplish that. And then you let the viewer decide if that sounds appetizing or not. And again, I think it's very good that the reviewer said that she didn't like the game. I don't think any of us want people to just lie, otherwise what's the point? But saying that the game is a bad game because you don't really like the genre and Mario is better isn't really insightful. Especially when any mainline Mario game from the last 20 years is probably better than all the games up for the Game of the Year this year. You can always make this argument, the Italian is just a trump card. So to answer the question at the beginning of the video, can reviews be objective? Obviously there will always be at least some degree of subjectivity in reviews. As long as the reviewer makes their personal preferences clear and keeps the comparisons within the same genre, a large degree of objectivity is easily possible. And as for the stuff that is inescapably subjective, the consumer of the review should be able to assess the subjective opinions of the review enough to see if they agree or disagree with them. And once again, in closing, comparisons across genres will always be entirely subjective. This is the one thing I like about the Game Awards. They totally get this. This is why you have different categories instead of just comparing Balatro and Tekken. Now you might point out that this isn't true for Game of the Year and some of the other high-up awards. These are all different genres for sure. But to me, the Game of the Year question is less which game did I personally enjoy the most, and more which game moved gaming as a whole forward. Now do these media outlets that do the voting think that way? Probably not. So it's back to subjective arguments that no one can win, but that is the fun of the Game Awards after all. So it's time for me to pick winners and losers in each category. I'll guess who I think will win and who I would pick. Keep in mind I've played 0 of these games and all my predictions will probably be incorrect. I'm uninformed, but that's what makes this fun, so let's get started.
Best outgoing game.
It's ongoing.
Best ongoing game.
That'll work. I'm guessing Fortnite is gonna win, and I would probably pick that one.
Best performance.
I'll guess the Life is Strange actress is gonna win, and I don't care about this category.
Best mobile game.
I'm guessing Balatro is gonna win. I mean, it should since it's up for Game of the Year, and none of these other ones are. I'd kinda have to question their Game of the Year lineup if it lost. As for what I'd pick, I don't play mobile games. I would try Balatro, but for card video games I already have Uno, which came free with my Xbox. I'll just pick it anyways though.
Best art direction.
I'll pick Neva for this category because it was the first one I googled and it looked nice. As for what I'd pick, I think I'll pick myself here because I did a good job on this drawing for the last video.
Best scoring music.
I'll go with Metaphor because this seems like the category to toss to the anime fans. As for what I'd pick, I'll side with them too as an apology for hating on Fire Emblem so much in this video.
Best audio design.
Call of Duty sweeps because they've had 5 other Call of Duty Black Ops games to get the audio design just right.
Best adaptation.
I remember people talking about Fallout, so I'm guessing that's gonna win. As for what I'd pick for the best adaptation, I'm gonna go with the American Wood Frog.
Best narrative.
I once again have no idea on this one, so I'll just guess that Metaphor will win. As for my pick for best narrative, it's gotta be the Patrick Star game just to rub salt in the wound.
Games for impact.
I'm gonna go with Neva again just so I can reuse my old slide for the sake of time. As for what I think should win, I'll say Concord should win, with the impact hopefully being that this live service crap stops immediately.
Best community support.
Helldivers 2 probably wins, which will be fun because I know that there was a lot of drama with logins of all things. But I once again gotta say that I think I should win because I try to answer all my comments.
Best multiplayer.
Mario Party Jamboree wins because Nintendo needs to win something here, and I'll pick it because the Italian is on the cover.
Best indie game and best debut indie game.
Again, shouldn't Balatro win these because it's up for Game of the Year? As for my pick, I think I'll go with Animal Well because it looks amazing and I'm definitely going to get it if it ever gets a physical copy that's easy to get a hold of.
Best VR AR game. Content Creator of the Year.
The Stupid Rabbit Girl will probably win. YouTubers who hide behind crude drawings are incredibly annoying, but it should be this guy who I see on all my Instagram reels because he's hilarious.
Most anticipated game.
Tough decision here.
Best action adventure game.
I think Astrobot wins this and not Game of the Year.
Best role-playing game.
I already told you I don't care about this category. Earthbound wins.
Best fighting game.
I mean, Tekken 8 wins kinda by default.
Best action game.
I'm gonna say Black Myth Wukong wins, and I'll go with Black Ops because I've at least played Call of Duty before.
Innovation and accessibility.
Gotta go with Star Wars Outlaws as they marked down the gold edition from $110, making it more accessible. That was really nice of them to do.
Best family game.
Echoes of Wisdom probably wins this, and I'll pick it too.
Best strategy sim game.
Unicorn Overlord is the only name I recognize. I have no preference.
Best sports racing game.
Gotta go with Topspin. For some reason I thought this was golf though.
Best esports game.
Mobile Legends Bang Bang because that name is fantastic.
Best esports athlete.
I'll go with Faker, the guy whose name I won't mispronounce.
Best esports team.
I'll go with Navi or Team Liquid because they don't play League of Legends.
Best game direction.
I've always liked going to the right.
Game of the Year.
I'm guessing Black Myth Wukong wins, but if I were in charge I'd pick Elden Ring again because the Fallout would be very funny. And after all, what is gaming about? It's about the fun, which is the root word of funny. Now in closing, I have just one more thing to request. Can we keep it a little farther under 3 hours this year? The show is almost longer than the real Game of the Year was.
Whoopsie!